I'm coughing a lot. It's that kind of day. Guys, Daybreak Games has acquired Palia. You might know Daybreak Games from their most recent and most successful game in recent history, Z1 Battle Royale. That's right. Their last fully developed game, and the last game they brought to completion, was H1Z1 Battle Royale, the game that started the Battle Royale trend, and then just as quickly as it started it, they killed the game off and let PUBG run wild with it. Needless to say, I don't think Palia is in a very good spot. I mean, just look at these numbers. They're fine. If you don't know who Daybreak is, you might have heard me reference Star Wars Galaxies in other Palia videos, specifically before they announced what their game was going to be and how they were talking about it. And I specifically brought Star Wars Galaxies up as that game that they should take a lot of inspiration from if they wanted to be an MMO that didn't take on the combat parts of an MMORPG, because SWG had a lot of good things from that. Daybreak is technically the company that published that, except it was Sony Online Entertainment at the time. Yeah, so Sony Online Entertainment ran a bunch of MMOs. They still run some MMOs today, and H1Z1 is not an MMO. There's some of their games right there if you want to look at them. They still actively develop EverQuest. Yeah, okay. So let's skip over all of these parts where they were directly tied to Russian oligarchs, sanctions, which who they said they were owned by, got invested into by a medical research company in order to bring EverQuest to phone. That was confusing. And let's move on to all the games that they did. So this is the grim part of Palia, if you will. The part that's a little bit worrying. So let's look at all their games real quick. Game 1, Tanaris, shut down. EverQuest, no longer in the hands of Variant or Red Eye Studio, who was the developers, basically, now run by Daybreak. They release an expansion every year or so, I think. I haven't played this game because, I don't know. 989 Studios was famous for Twisted Metal, and most of their employees joined Red Eye when they shut down. It's very confusing. This is a very confusing development. We could probably do an entire discussion just on that, because it's confusing. Infantry, shut down. Cosmic Rift, shut down. EverQuest Online Adventures, shut down. PlanetSide, shut down. Star Wars Galaxies, shut down by LucasArts, not by SOE, because licensing issues with Star Wars The Old Republic coming out literally 10 days, 9 days. It was like literal days after the shutdown. Whatever. EverQuest Online Adventures Frontiers, shut down. Star Chamber, shut down. A couple non-shutdownable games. EverQuest 2, shut down. The Matrix Online, shut down. Single-player games with that most of these were them publishing. Where were we? Pox Nora, shut down. Vanguard Saga, shut down. Legends of Norath, shut down. Pirates of the Burning Sea, they lost the right to publish this, and it's published by a completely different company. So they don't own it, so they don't shut it down. Good? Good. Free Realms, a game that a lot of people in Palia actually really liked, shut down. Heavy Weapon, I'm just going to include this with Peggle on Peggle Nice. Run by PopCap, not by them. They can't shut it down. These were just ports. Star Wars Clone Wars Adventures, shut down. Fortunately, shut down. DC Universe, still running under a new developer that Daybreak's overlords created. Magic the Gathering Tactics, shut down. Bullet Run, shut down. PlanetSide 2 had a really weird phase in it. Oh, okay, not originally completely developed by Daybreak, developed in part with them, but they had a really weird development where they stopped developing this game to develop another game and then shut that one down. So then they had to return to this one and start doing stuff with it, but that break really killed some of the player base. And okay, Dragon's Prophet, shut down. Just Survive, shut down. Landmark, shut down. Z1 Battle Royale, and then some canceled projects. Now, since Daybreak has become Daybreak, this how does highlight it? Since Daybreak became Daybreak, this part of their history has happened, and only this part of their history. You see, Daybreak doesn't make games. They just take games from other people. When they do make games, this happens. This is their only game. You see, it went up, then it went down very fast, and then it stayed down. They milked it. They milked it and refused to improve it. So if you're wondering what it's going to look like in the near future, this is a list of, well, EverQuest. What EverQuest has become since Daybreak has taken it over, basically. This is a list of all of the things that can be bought for money in EverQuest at the current moment on a site that looks like it's straight out of 1999 when EverQuest came out. Every one of these is $8, which is somehow cheaper than, yeah. Just gonna put that out there. Even the company that's trying to rip off all of its people is cheaper than Singularity 6. I say that, and then we get into these wonderful bundles that are $1,500. But yeah, no, they have very large, very expansive cash shops. It's not to date. It's like 8 days out of date. But you guys understand. This shop is very big, very expansive, and covers many of the systems of the game. And this is their flagship game. This is what I would consider, outside of maybe Lord of the Rings, as the #1 game that they have their hands in. Why am I not talking about Lord of the Rings then? Because that's run by a completely different developer and they only publish it, and this same one also does Dungeons & Dragons Online, and it was originally Turbine, but then those guys became WB Games Boston, and some of those people went over to this company, and it's a whole mess. So this one wasn't a good example. Now, if we look over the list here, we can see that that big cash shop of everything is probably the better end of the stick here, where they just, charge you for everything in the game. But, it could be worse. I mean, Daybreak has acquired companies in the past. They're just not around anymore. Oh, I should also note that EverQuest has a monthly subscription, and many of their games have a monthly subscription. So it might pick up that soon. Now, if you want to know my thoughts about hearing that, recently the other MMO that I played a lot of, SOTOR, was taken over by another one of these studios. But this one was the EA equivalent, Broadsword, which, yeah. But I will say, when it comes to Broadsword, the games like Dark Age of Camelot, Ultima Online, these are more games being kept in the state that they were without a whole lot of changes happening, because they have a very, very long history. And SOTOR is the first game that they brought on that wasn't made before modern graphical interfaces existed, basically. And they ended up bringing a lot of people over from the SOTOR team to do this. That we could have an entire different discussion about how BioWare screwed this game over. But that's not for this. I'm just sad now that I've seen this happen twice to 2 games that I played. Well, if you're here wondering what's going to happen to this game, or what I think is going to happen to this game, I honestly think that, well, I'd love to hear how much they bought it out for, but I don't see Daybreak doing well with this. They don't have a clean track record of improving games much after they get them. Instead, they add cash shops, and they usually struggle to get them to a stable-ish point before they let them sort of wither, unless you're EverQuest. But the recent firings and layoffs at Singularity 6 makes me wonder if there's even enough people working at that studio to be able to, push their own road to develop the game. as they'd want to, which is the only reason that games like Lord of the Rings Online or Dungeons and Dragons Online still have some semblance of their own way. I don't think this is going to go well. I say enjoy the game while you can, and hopefully somebody starts making a private server, because that might be the only way that this thing turns out playable. Well, have fun, farewell,